Okay, good morning, everybody. We're going to discuss the difference between density and dimension. There's a lot of confusion because there's the scientific community and then there's the spiritual community in these terms because our language is flexible. But first, I think I'd like to thank Source for having such an amazing day and for gathering this wonderful group of like-minded souls together, and hope we can convey some interesting and informative information to you so that you'll understand better of how we work, how big our souls really are, where we're going, and where we already are, off in so many places at the same time as we're right here living on this planet right now. So I basically, your club's called Life After Life, but I kind of look at it as like there's no such thing as life after life. There is only life. We never we transform out of this thing here is a vehicle. It's like we have a Cadillac, or we have a Rolls Royce, or we have a Volkswagen, or a Kia, or whatever, and that's all these different races that we have on our planet. But basically, they're all cars. This is a car. That's all it is. And so when that car kicks a bucket, it goes off to the junkyard, right, or the crematory, or whatever. But the driver just steps out and moves on, right? You guys have all had cars, multiple cars. That's what this is. This is a very unusual car, though. It's a very special car. And most of us don't understand the nature of what we have because it's been kept from us, the understanding of our vehicle. It's very, very special. We'll get into that later on of how special this vehicle is. And we're coming to a point in time where our vehicle doesn't have to expire for a really long time. I mean, like hundreds, maybe even thousands of years. And that we're meant to live a lot longer than we do. But we've been sort of manipulated, dumbed down and sickened. And it's been by design. But anyway, that's not what the whole point of this is. The point is for you guys to understand how big our soul really is. So starting out, I will just a little bit of background on me. I have, I guess I came in with the ability to remember my past lives. So from the time I was a child, I knew multiple past lives. And as I got older, I discovered more and more of them. And then as I began meditating about 1992, I started seriously, going on my spiritual journey. And the past lives became more and more detailed. So I could remember. So I wrote a book, the first book should be 8 more following, if I have the gumption to sit there and type it all. But anyway, this one's called The Troubadour. And it's a past life memory in the 1100s as the troubadour Blondel and his friendship with Richard the Lionheart through the Crusades and all that. But it's a story, but it's in detail. This is just a memory, a full memory. We all have the ability to do this stuff, but it's just like pulling it out. It's a lot of patience and a lot of time, but when you get to understanding what your past lives were, it also helps you deal with what you're going through now, because you're going to find people, places, and things that resonate with you, and it's past life memory, basically. It's reminding you, it's tapping you on the shoulder, reminding you, say, oh, my husband, well, I guess I've been married to him 6 other times, or my wife was my mother, or my wife was my girlfriend in another life. And, it goes like that. But we also change, in our lifetimes, we change from male to female. So, but the relationships seem to continue. We seem to travel with a group, the same group of souls, and we keep coming across. Even when you come across people in this life now that aren't, say, your best friend or anything, you kind of go, boy, I know you. You just recognize people. All right. So anyway, so the connections with people and the resonance with places and things all has to do with being able to discover your past lives. And if you're interested in that, you can always also, there are quantum hypnosis that's doing really great things with helping people uncover that information. And it's valuable because that's another whole talk, which maybe Mary and I will discuss that. Understanding your past lives, being able to utilize that information now is very important as we go through the Ascension. We're ascending into 5D, and that's partly what I'm going to explain here. What's happening on the planet right now, what's happening to each one of our souls, and our physical bodies. We're all experiencing a lot of stuff right now, physically. So the other one, another book, and I'm not here to sell books. I just brought them so you could see. Finding Pet Heaven. We did a little talk on that in January. And that's really the kind of a primer on learning how to astral travel and the incredible adventures that you can have. I mean, you don't have to leave your house. You have all the entertainment you want. Just take off and go. But it also attests to the ability of our soul, and it's a natural ability for all of us. We can do this. All of these things we can do. I went to the Monroe Institute and learned how to astral travel. I wanted to learn how to do it right. I started probably back in the 90s again. I did a few astral trips, and it was fun. And then somebody scared me, told me, "Oh no, that's dangerous." And then I didn't try it again for 30 plus years, and because I was afraid. And anytime there's fear attached, forget it. It's not going to happen. But it turned out there was nothing to be afraid of, and it was just it is the most marvelous experience. So that you can there are actually places to go to learn how to do this. So, and by the way, you guys, it's the best vacation you ever had. It's like a week-long seminar at the Monroe Institute in Virginia. It's all your meals are taken care of. You're waited on hand, and you spend the time learning, how to astral travel, how to leave your body safely, effectively, all the proper protection that you need to do, and it basically teaches you where to go. And then from there, after you get the tools, after you learn how to use it, you basically have more control over your spiritual vehicle, and you can just take off from there. So that's pretty fun. It's really fun. So that's Finding Pet Heaven. And that picture down that's on the front, I brought it just for fun. That's what I see when the first place we land when we get to, well, we'll call it heaven. Heaven. It's a place. It is a place. It's real. People are there. The animals they're not in that place, but they can be in that place. But that's a place called Reception, where we all go to sort of get processed. There's a beautiful garden behind it, and that's a place where a lot of people say that if you have NDEs or whatever, if you end up in a beautiful park-like setting, that you're meeting up with your grandmother or your parents or brothers or sisters, friends who've passed on, that's usually the place where they'll meet. And it's right, in that picture, it's right behind the plaza. You would just walk through there, and it opens up into this beautiful space. And people actually live there, too. And I believe most of the people that live where that painting is are mostly in service to humanity. They're people that do soul retrieval primarily, or they're working in some spiritual aspect. But they actually have, a lot of them aren't permanent residents. They're just people that come and go. Like me, I have a house there, and I come and go all the time. The house was just a whim that, the course said, build a house. But it was partly to show you that you have the infinite ability of creation. And basically that's part of our godlike nature, is that we can create anything when we get to there. And that's going to be explained in here, how you'll see how it actually works between the science and the spirituality, and then what I've actually personally experienced through astral travel. So in the astral, what the first thing you do is when we're in this place, it's numbered through, they call them focus levels, but it's numbered in, like 1 would be here and now. We're all in 1 right now. But when you lie down and go to sleep, you want to try to get your body into a state of mind awake, body asleep, and that's called 10. And then it goes in states. The pets were found in 15, and then it goes in states after that. So like 27, that's 27. Just to give you an idea how far out it goes. That's 27, and that's reception. But each one of those is a higher density, and that's what you have to learn. That's the trick to it. That's the basically weightlifting, is that you have to learn to adjust your consciousness to handle the higher frequencies as you go farther and farther out. And so that's completely doable. It's like learning to play the piano or play golf or anything else that you do. You just practice. Keep doing it, and you go farther and farther. And the thing is, you can actually get out there even after a little bit of practice, but you won't be able to stay long. And what happens? You just fall asleep. You just pass out. You won't remember what happened. But then probably all of us travel astrally at night in our dreams. So we're doing it. Our subconscious is able to do it. Our conscious mind just can't keep up with it. But that's what you can get trained to do, to have your conscious mind keep up with your subconscious and be awake while it's all happening and cognizant of everything that's going on. So one of the reasons that you want to learn to astral travel, if you can, try it, learn to astral travel, is so you can prove to yourself the truth of these higher realms. You can see loved ones that have passed on. You can be of service in soul retrieval. As I said, a lot of people that live in 27 are soul retrievers. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of people in this world that don't know where to go. And there's people like me and many, many others that actually help souls. I just call it's like an escort service. That's all. You just help them get to the right place to get processed and move on from there. You can in certain levels, and you'll see this as part of this explanation over here. Certain levels you can travel forward and backward in time. And I've gone forward a little bit. I don't really do the forward thing much. What's going to happen is you'll see how our understanding of some spiritual things tie in beautifully with string theory. And what's happening is actually science is finally catching up to spirituality, because the masters have been teaching us this stuff for thousands of years, but we didn't get it. And now science is going, oh yeah, that's right. And we're going, yeah, well, we've been saying this all along, but before it used to be woo-woo. Now it's the woo-woo's becoming real, because now science says so, but it always was. It was just people didn't believe it. So this leads us to the discussion of densities and dimensions. Now what we have is the situation with our English language is flexible, and it means different things at different times. So we're going to do a very quick overview of the string theory, and that will because what happens is their terms are different. They call dimension like the point on 1D, they call it dimension. It's 1 point is 1D. It's a point that cannot be measured. So it's basically just a spot. There's nothing there. It's just a point. 2D is the straight line between 2 points. 3D is the cube that has the height, width, and depth. So it has spatial, like we're 3D. This is 3D. Where the piece of paper, is basically, well, it's not really 1D, but this would be 2D. But, basically if there's no depth to it, then it's 1D. 4D is where things get interesting. 4D is the dimension of time. And the diagram is up here to show that in time, you could go, the illustration would be that, say, you're in this life and you have a certain wife, and you decided, oops, I should have married somebody else. You could actually go back in time, marry that other person, and carry on. And what you have is a split timeline. But you could have that other life, but you can't go back and you can't be cognizant of the life. You see the X's on the bottom life. So wife number 1, life gone. So you're on another life. But 5D, you can split off in multiple directions in multiple timelines, but you can't meet yourself. In other words, you can go, but you can't come back to be back with wife 1 again, but you can go off in any multiple directions that you want, as many at a time, and be cognizant of those different timelines. But you can't come back and meet yourself. But 6D is where it gets really interesting, Because 6D, you can branch off in all the different timelines. You could have multiple lives, which is what we really do. We have these aspects of ourselves that are in 6D right now. We're living other lives in other dimensions. But what happens in 6D is you can actually go back and meet yourself and be cognizant and aware and living all the lives simultaneously and be aware of it. And they go on out to 11, but there's really no point for our discussion to go into, really getting it super complicated, because that's going to really tie into how the spiritual aspect of it works. So when you get into spirituality, the terms change a little bit. So we have a dimension is really it's a universe. Okay? And we all live in multiple universes at the same time. It could be parallel universes. And every universe, we'll use it on here, every universe has, each one of these is, say, a density, which is like this. These are densities here. Everyone has that. So we're living, supposedly we're living in, our universe has 12 densities that we live in. Some of them are smaller and may have only 8. Some of them might have 5. And we might be living all of them at the same time. And we might be living on multiple densities at the same time. So, yeah, don't process that too much right now. That's a big one. Because when you realize that we are really all over the place. And we have a higher self that, is way up in the source, probably 8, maybe 8, 9 density, our higher self resides and kind of controls all of this. And so we're just we're even an aspect of ourselves, and all of us are basically an aspect of we'll call it God. It's not God, it's really source. Because God's another whole other issue, and actually a lot of things that we thought were myth and all that are actually true, which is pretty interesting. All that stuff's coming out. It's fascinating. We're living in the most amazing time in history right now. That's for sure. So density, in terms of the spiritual aspect, is best described as the rate of vibration of particles in matter. Okay, so it's a vibration rate, or you'll hear a lot of times the term thrown around, frequency. So, but dimension in the aspect of spirituality is the discussion of more of the universe versus the string theory. But the string theory and the spirituality you'll see mesh and you match up. So, for instance, the D's in spirituality would be more like the density versus dimension. But they'll say 1D, 2D, 3D, meaning they'll say it's dimension. So the point is, you hear a lot of things, different podcasts and people, but you'll hear those terms thrown around. But there's a lot of I'm just trying to give you clarity on it, because there's a difference between dimension and density. And density is what we're really experiencing now. That's the focus, is density. Because that's what's going to take. All of us are ascending. The planet is already in 5D. All of us are ascending into 5D. And that's probably if you have a lot of aches and pains, days when you feel like you can't get out of bed, a lot. Sometimes, we're all dealing with, maybe it's depression, and I mean the pressures of the world today seem really, really hard to take. Well, we're all ascending, and what we're doing is we have to purge the old stuff out, get rid of it. That's our internal stuff, and that's part of the thing called the dark night of the soul. We go through it, and it's part of it's kind of almost killing the ego. It's moving beyond ego into a place that's more of a unity consciousness. So when you get through that, so you get through into the unity consciousness by purging this stuff. We're allowing the light to come in. So the light is actually a physical thing. How many of you have noticed the sun that used to be yellow when we were kids? We drew a yellow sun. It's white now. Has anybody noticed that? Yeah. It's not the same sun that we grew up with. What happened? Nobody's really explained that one yet. But anyway, that light is coming into us, and we can actually see this on the Schumann resonance. You can look that up. It's daily, posted every 15 minutes. It's updated online. You can see it, and you can see when then these massive blasts of light are coming in. And because I'm aware of it, I'm personally able to kind of observe when the big dumps of light and energy are coming in, and how I feel. And so sometimes it might be the next day or 2 days after, and then all of a sudden I'm flat out. I just can't move. That's it. I'm not going anywhere. So, if you're feeling, more fatigue these days, there's a reason for it, because we're actually all being upgraded. We've been raised with the understanding that we have 2 strands of DNA. Well, we were actually created with 12. And the rest of it, scientists or doctors want to call junk DNA. And it's not junk. It's not junk. What's happening is this incoming light is what is awakening our junk DNA. And that junk DNA is what gives us what we were talking about before, is clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, all of these aspects of ourself that some people would think are extrasensory perception. Well, they're actually things that humans were designed to be able to do, all of us, everybody. We're just at different rates of development, different rates that our DNA is being turned on, but gradually we'll get it all. Can you imagine when we get all 12 strands turned on, what we're going to be able to do? Incredible. So back to the density and dimension, our consciousness is just like light and sound is vibrating at certain frequencies, where we measure in hertz. It's oscillating waves. And every atom vibrates at a certain frequency, higher and higher in each density. So as you go each density higher, it means those atoms are vibrating faster, and the waves are condensing. So where they were like this, then they get closer, they're more like this. But that's just to show you the idea of what the density is. And in astral travel, that's the challenge, is adjusting your consciousness to be able to manage the density and stay conscious with it. We'll start with this thing. Here's an interesting. This is the how the densities work and where we're going on the Earth. So let's say this is the Earth and this is us. The Earth core. This is new information. It's really not out scientifically out, because we haven't been able to. Why, I don't know. The scientists haven't been able to get to this yet. But there's a very interesting author. His name's Radu Sinamar. And Radu has himself personally made many, many trips into inner Earth. And he's traveled. This is with the scientific community and with spiritual. But all the scientific community that's going into these underground civilizations is going with. They have to be of a higher spiritual nature, and they're having spiritual, masters that are doing this, because they have to be able to control their density. Inside Earth is a higher density than we are there. It's more like, there's probably areas that are 4D and definitely 5D, definitely 6D and higher. You all have heard of Shambhala, right? The mythical, legendary city of Shambhala. Well, evidently Shambhala exists. I've actually seen it. I've actually been inside Shambhala, but it's inside inner Earth, but it's in a very high density, and you have to be able to manage that frequency, that density vibration, to be able to go inside. So Radu hasn't been inside of Shambhala. But he's been there in the physical. Okay, I have been there in the astral, so I think it's a little easier to rate. But you should be able to do either. If if your frequency is up, you can get in anyway. But Radu has seen it from a distance. He's been in the suburbs of Shambhala. He's seen it from a distance. He's been in many other cities. That I left a reading list on the front table. If any of you guys are interested, I highly recommend reading his books. He has a 7-book series called the Transylvania series, And it covers a lot of stuff. And it is all based in spirituality, but it's also in science. It's the history of Earth, a lot of the history of Earth. Pretty fascinating stuff. It's going to blow your mind when you find out. What he says is there's 125 different civilizations in inner Earth. And we're also finding out that there was 2 podcasts like last week this is also on that list, or exopolitics.org. Exopolitics interviewed a guy that's in the military. His name's JP. It's anonymous. He doesn't talk about who he is, but he was on 2 expeditions within the month of October. So just last month, it's recent. 2 expeditions into inner Earth, and he encountered what they called ant people. They're humanoid body, but their heads were like ants, and they're supposedly guarding some giant who turns out was I can't even say it, Quetzalcoatl. Anyway, this giant's big, 12 to 20 feet, and he's been asleep for a really, really, really long time, but he's waking up. There's a reason why he's waking up. I'll get to that too. And they actually gave the U.S. government seeds from very interesting plants that actually create light, generate light. They're luminescent. And we have the seeds for them, and the guys went back on their second trip, and then they wouldn't let them farther in to see that, and they wouldn't take them to show them any more stuff, because supposedly the seeds vanished. So somebody in the military, evidently, that we think, sent them to our new King Charles. And you go, well, why would that be? That's a good question, isn't it? They turned it over to the U.S. military for a reason, and then the military sort of betrayed the first encounter with an inner Earth civilization like this, and they betray them. I mean, it's like, seriously. So who's working for us? That's what I want to know. Anyway, from core to crust, the core of Earth is a black hole. According to these guys, this is new information. Okay, you probably haven't heard this anywhere. So, but an interesting part of that black hole is water. Our water is coming in from that black hole, and we have like oceans underneath our feet inside inner Earth. There's no reason for us to be running out of water. There's more water inside the Earth than there is in the oceans above. So we have plenty of water. But that's an interesting factor. And like I said, and then the density seems to increase the higher you get in, because the black hole, of course, would be a very high density. We get out to the crust where we are, and that's 3D. So we're operating in 3D, and that's the realm of duality. And that's been our life that we know of. Dualistic, good, bad, dark, light, up, down. It's the experiential material realm. And my outtake on this is that we're here to experience everything and gather information so that when we return back to source or the higher densities, we're taking that information and that knowledge with us back to the collective. I say there's no complaining. We chose to be here. We signed up for this, guys. We did. We didn't end up here by accident. And actually, everybody that's here right now is really, really fortunate, because basically, this is sort of a funny way to look at it. You remember the O.J. Simpson trials, where all of a sudden it was reality TV and everybody was watching what was going on in the trial every day? Well, Earth is like the O.J. trials right now. The galaxy, the universe, is watching what we're doing right now. We are blanketed right now out in the galaxy with thousands of ships. And the reason that I get into going back out into the galaxy with this is because all of it's connected. From inner Earth, Earth core, out into the galaxy, we're all connected. We're actually family, because what I told you about the 12 strands of DNA, we evidently were created by creator beings or gods. Now, the gods are not source. The gods may be a high level of like one of the first steps down from source of individualized consciousness. out of source. We're all source, but we're all individualized consciousness. And the gods may be more advanced than we are, but we were basically, we were created. We were manufactured. And we also were an experiment. And what makes us really unique is those 12 strands of DNA were contributed by 24 different alien races that they contributed us, they gave us their highest and best traits. So that what it is with our human body, we incorporate the technology is built in. The clairaudience, the clairvoyance, the telekinesis, bilocation. We're going to be able to, I mean, if you read the Masters, if you read, I don't know if anybody's read about, like Yogananda's Autobiography of a Yogi. Anybody ever read that? Yeah. Okay, remember how Sri Yukteswar, how they talk about being in two places at one time? Well, it's real. I mean, and we can actually do this stuff. And when our DNA and our consciousness catches up to it, we're going to be able to do this stuff. So it's pretty interesting. That book, by the way, if you haven't read it, you really ought to. That book has a lot of information in it. And Yogananda is my guide, actually. When I travel out of body, well, that is past tense now, was my guide. He's still in my life, and I communicate with him, but he's not holding my hand anymore. He dumped me. So I don't want to say dumped me, but he just said, "Okay, you're enough." I will tell you a funny story if you want it. I mean, it's going to sound a little unbelievable, but remember, this is an astral trip, so we can do a lot of things in the astral we can't do here. When I say the galaxy is watching us, it's not only the galaxy, but it's multiple universes. A group came into we know. A group came into our galaxy last October, just about a year ago. I think it was October 21st last year, from the Intergalactic Confederation, and they're called the Cedars. They were the guys on board that mothership. Are creators. They're there. And so when I heard that, I was like, "Whoa, that's awesome!" Awesome. I want to see that mothership. I thought, well, what the heck? I could astral travel. But I had no idea where the mothership, how to get there, whatever, because I don't know my way around space that well yet. I have lessons, many more lessons to learn. Anyway, so I call on Yogananda, and I always travel with Michael and Yogananda, and I say, okay, I want to see this mothership. So we go out and we see the mothership, and we're looking at, and I'm viewing the mothership from, sort of distance, because the thing's massive, so I'm way off in the distance, but I was quite happy. I basically blinked, and the next thing I found, we're in the mothership. I went, wait a minute. I didn't plan on this. I wasn't planning on coming inside. This really tall being walks up to me, very, very handsome man, in kind of a white suit, not a space suit. They talk about the environmental suits. He was wearing like clothes, almost looked like a Nehru suit, very beautifully tailored, super handsome guy. And then something in my mind I said, well, of course it's a man. And I don't know why I thought that. And then in front of me, he morphed into this really beautiful woman. And then he says, would you rather I look like this? And I just burst out laughing. I mean, it was hysterical. It was actually a very funny moment. But in just seconds after that, he gave me this huge download, massive download of who we are, of who we really are. And I said, well, what should I call you? He says, Father. So that's who it was. So, and then Yogananda basically says, okay, go to Father now. You basically kicked me up a notch. So now, basically, if I have questions or whatever, I meet Father out beyond the beyond, and we sit most nights and have nice chats, and when I meditate, and it's great. And he's perfectly accessible, and they're perfectly able to be accessible. Even traveling with Michael and Yogananda, you say, well, how can Yogananda have time to take you on astral trips? And Michael, my gosh, he must be the busiest guy in the universe. Well, we have those abilities to split. They can be anywhere, as many of them as they want. And that I cover that in Finding Pet Heaven. because I was overwhelmed with my own personal soul retrieval duties, because I was involved in retrieving these children that I kept finding in the area where the pets were, and I didn't know why they were there, because there really aren't any children in heaven. It's an interesting part of the story. But when I was overwhelmed with that, the amount of work, night after night, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of these children were showing up, and I couldn't understand why. And I said, I don't know how am I going to do this? And Yogananda says, you can do that and anything. I said, there's not enough of me to go around. He goes, oh yeah, there's enough of you to go around. There's enough of you to, unlimited. You are unlimited, the amount of you that can handle whatever needs to be handled. So that's how Michael can be in, a zillion places at one time, and Yogananda can be all over the place. It's because they have this ability, because their consciousness and their soul is so, they have the ability to just split off. So we're on the third density. We're right now actually physically, the people of Earth right now are moving through fourth density. And that's just the hard part for us right now. It's a transition place. It's not a permanent place where anybody's going to stay. It's a transition. Fairies and elves, a lot of these mythical beings that we've heard about are actually real, and because they're living in a different density, you can't see them. It's like a radio wave. You're going to dial into that radio wave, and when you get to that frequency, then you can see this stuff. But they're actually, that stuff's real. But fourth density is a chaotic place. It's still dualistic, with good and bad, and right now it feels more bad than good, I think, generally, in the world. It's pretty screwed up. But that's what's happening, is the world is also purging the evil. All the mess that's going on right now, have faith, guys. We're going to get through it, and it's going to be just awesome when we get to the other side, because really good things are planned. So right now we're in the hard part, but hang in there and understand that and know that and keep that vision in front of you, because that hope for what it really looks like when we get through. And it's not that far away. I think we have 2 more years of real mucky stuff, and then things really start to get a lot better. A whole lot better. So, yeah, have faith in that. But 4D, fourth density, here, is also a place of where thought forms and discarnates, and we are developing in 4D a better connection to the collective consciousness. This I notice when I watch different podcasts, because I watch a lot of different information, and I love it when I see people that don't know each other all talking about the same thing. It means we're all getting that information from the same place. We're tapped in. It's really great news. And it means it also kind of validates and verifies what we're getting, that when you hear it from all these different sources, that we're all coming in with the same. Then you start to recognize truth. We're also getting to a point in the Ascension where I call it our BS meters, or our bullshit meters, our hearts really dialed in, where you can spot the truth. You can tell what's true and what's not true. And so we resonate with truth now. And that's part of our consciousness that's growing. Where we may, some people, my mom always had amazing ability with that. I probably didn't have as much. She was always right. But I think everybody is having that dialed up. So we're having a much greater ability in that area. Let's see. Yeah, the idea of the collective consciousness too, that's been out there for, obviously that's always been out there, but some people more of us are tapping into it now. But you can relate that to the fact that at certain times, multiple people across the world that don't know each other are also inventing the same thing at the same time. They're getting that information out of the collective consciousness. So what we're headed, which is the greatest news of all, is that we're heading into fifth density here. And that's where we're going to be for a really long time. But the thing, as you guys understand, that going through these densities, this is a real thing, a real physical thing in the galaxy right now. You know, our Milky Way galaxy looks like a spinning, like a spiral it has arms that come out. Well, there's photon belts that come out of the central sun. By the way, this Earth core is also connected to the central sun of the galaxy. So there's, it's all divine design. So understand that there's nothing accidental with any of our creation or any of this. But in 5D, we're going to. It's a place of unity consciousness. Hallelujah! Aren't we all looking for that? Alignment with Source and Divine Will. The evil's going to fall away. What happens is the evil and all the really bad and the horrible stuff that's going on right now, it can't move past 4D. It's like I visualize it as almost like a sieve or a net or something. It's too dense to pass through. So one of the reasons we have to purify ourselves, purify our minds, our egos, clean up your house, get rid of the clutter, declutter your life, declutter your body, try to eat healthy food and take care of yourself the best you can, because these bodies are going to be really important, really important. And what happens is, if you if you get yourself set and you get your frequency high enough, you can pass through. We're passing through, and I think all of us have moments where we find ourselves in 5D, because the Earth has already physically passed into the 5D through the photon bands in our cycle going around the central sun. This is the galactic cycle going around the central sun. We've passed through these bands, but the humans we're lagging behind. We have to catch up with Mother Earth. So that's our job right now, is to work on ourselves. In fifth density, like I said, you need to clean up, declutter, meditate, purge the ego, and the dark night of the soul is a big deal. But it really only starts happening when you realize that you need to do it. And that's something you'll all that's everybody's own journey. And all of this, nobody can do it for you. You have to do this for yourself. Yeah, our consciousness aligns with, so the Pleiadians are mentioned as being the keepers of 5D. Sixth density, we're not, in our lifetime, we're going to be basically, planet Earth's going to be in 5D for a long time, okay? So, but there's other planets that are in our universe that are in these higher densities. So, probably Sirius is probably 60. So, it said sixth density is very interesting. It's the realm of creation, where they create the blueprints and templates for everything that's made on Earth. And everything that's made on Earth, including us, including the plants, everything is made from sacred geometry. There's a book that's on that reading list. It's called The Cedars, and it discusses the races that came and combined their DNA to help make us. We were created genetically. We were a genetic experiment. And actually, the guy that created us, they call, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Sumerian texts, the Enki and Enlil. Well, evidently, Enki is back. And some of these high density consciousnesses have the ability to we all live forever, basically. But what happens is they maintain their identity. They probably keep their bodies for literally thousands of years. And then if they decide to get a new body, they just get a new body, but they just transfer the consciousness into the new body. There's no, we have to start all over and learn to walk, talk, read, and write and forget everything like we've been doing. That's the trick of Earth. That's not like that out farther as we advance. And after 5D, when we get into 5D, we won't have that anymore either. We're not going to forget. You're not going to, forget who you were. You'll have access to all that information, Akashic records, and you'll know your past lives and all that stuff. But The Cedars, that's a really interesting book too. So I highly recommend that. There's a lot of books on that list that I found helpful. in, to grow my knowledge base. But that's getting into the galactic stuff. But the point, what happens is very interesting, is you can't really separate what's going on as far as the galactic world is concerned with Earth, because it's all interrelated. And exopolitics is a great place to look into that, because it starts to connect inner Earth, and the galaxy, and it's all one. It's all, you can't take it apart from each other. We're all related, and even the guys that are living, which a good majority of them are human, just like they would. Matter of fact, many of them are walking around on the surface, and you wouldn't know they were from inner Earth. They look just like us, walk, talk, and they're human. They are human. And they were actually, a lot of those races were seeded from the, Atlantis and Lemuria. When they went under, some of the survivors of those, little blocks of survivors went underground in order to survive that cataclysmic time. On the planet, the surface was going through crazies. What we're called, is humans. And the reason I say we can't separate this is because in galactic terms, the word Hu means God. Okay, and human is God, man. So that's who we are. We are considered, and that's one of the reasons that the galaxy and the universe is watching us right now. We're considered very galactic royalty, put it that way. We're all sovereign beings, and we are a very, very high capability when we figure it out. But it's up to us to figure it out. So, but our human abilities, the natural human abilities that are going to come on, or like I said, all the clairaudient, clairvoyant, clairsentient, empathy, telepathy, telekinesis, bilocation, and the astral travel, that I still have people that think, oh, wow, you must be really special or something, because you can. I said, no, you just learn how to do it. It's just like anything else. You can just learn, and every single person has the ability to do it. So it's nothing. I don't think it's anything special. It's just you have to have the desire to do it and practice. And I think actually, because I don't lift out a body and float on the ceiling or any of that stuff. I go in to go out, and I think that our pineal gland is a portal. Now that's just my impression of it. That's my intuition says that we have a portal built right inside our head, that we can go anywhere we want in the universe or other universes if we know how to get there, which I don't. But anyway, so they're saying the Syrians are the keepers of the sixth density, and that is again the place where things are designed. So they actually design, and everything is designed to perfection with this sacred geometry. And they're the guys that are, I guess, the master designers. And, probably in our mythology and stuff, these are some of the people that we called gods, that had these abilities. They really exist. So it's, I'm pretty, probably like most people, I just thought it was all a bunch of stories, And lately I'm going, whoa, actually, it was true, which is the big surprise. Seventh density starts to get into the non-physical. I think some of my astral travels, I think maybe Sri Yukteswar's planet of Hiranyaloka might be right on the very outskirt of 60, right bordering on 7, because he says he's the farthest out astral planet that you can go. I think what he means by that is the farthest physical planet, because it is physical. But it takes a great deal. You have to really be in tune to be able to stay there, because it's such a high density. But so 7th density is the realm of sound. So you guys know in the Bible, that there was the Word, and the Word was. Oh, anyway, but the point is, but the realm of sound is 7, and 8 is the realm of, light? Yes, light and divine and angelic beings, but I think mostly in 8th density you're going to find non-physical. They're still beings, they're more like maybe what we would call light beings. It's an area that's like the beginning of the mind of God beginning to individuate into individual consciousness. And then there's a place of etheric beings. And then ninth through 12th is basically non-corporeal. It's not physical. It's still density and it exists, but it's just getting closer and closer and closer to source, which is sort of 12 and beyond. So that pretty much, I don't know if that's your hour, but that pretty much sums up my, I don't know if you have any questions about any of this or any of the other subjects that I touched on here. Be happy to take any. Yeah, okay. She wants to know how often do I spot other souls that I have known in lives. Usually if I'm talking to somebody and, we just like click and you kind of go, wow, I know you. And you feel like you've known them for 100 years, 1,000 years, who knows? You probably have. It happens. I mean, and sometimes they're just basically strangers, people random here and there. But I can spot it in my own personal life. I know who my husband, was, another husband in another life, several other lives, other partner, other people, my mother, my father. All these people have had multiple roles in different lives. My brother was my father in another life. It gets it, but it just happens. You know what it is? It's resonance. You recognize it. It's like start tuning into your heart, and you'll recognize. You'll start to recognize people. You'll know whether you've known them or not. And then there's times you just don't, and you haven't met them. But you will. You can do it if you just start to listen for it and just trust your own intuition. That's the thing, we have to trust ourselves when we come up with this information, because everything, all the information, all the knowledge that we're really getting right now, you can listen to lots of different sources. You have to filter it through your own system and trust yourself. But you go inside in your intuition to process it and realize it. It's all coming from inside right now. Everything, and even the answers. If you meditate, you'll get the answers on the inside. Yeah. He said, in my travels or my studies, have I found that there is a God? And I said, actually, I think what I'm calling them, there are a lot of gods, but they're gods that these are highly advanced beings from higher densities and probably other planets, and they're just way more advanced than we are. But God. I mean, God. It's really what they would refer to. These higher beings would refer to it as source. So yes, there is but it isn't. But source isn't an entity. Source is like a massive consciousness, but we're all of us are part of source. So it's like source reaching out and breaking off fragments. We're like all fragments of source. Every one of us, and especially, and our human group is pretty special. So I mean, when we grow up, when we get our act together, they may be calling us gods. Who knows? I don't know. We'll find out when we get there.
Yeah. In your travels, do you see you recognize a family member? Is it physical that you see them physically, or is it just by?
Yeah, no. Am I astral? When I do the astral stuff, yeah, I would suggest, I mean, like I said, I'm not here to sell books, but I would suggest reading Finding Pet Heaven. And it explains it. It's actually fully illustrated. That's one of the illustrations. Yes, it's actually physical. I mean, I see my mom. My mom has a house next door to me there. I see my dad. I mean, I dropped in the other night, and my grandmother was there. The whole family was there. All these aunts and uncles, and they were all just sitting around having a little visit. And they're, you can walk up and hug them, and you're going to feel the body. So it is physical, but it's a higher density. So when I wrote this, I really didn't understand that, Monroe talks about the focus levels, And that's what he uses to like map out and train you how to get to the places that you want to go to. But now I've been able to put it in context of densities. And so I think that, I think this area, for instance, 27, that's that picture down there, I'm thinking it's in 6D because of the ability to instantly create. So say, oh, well, I want a house and it's got a gabled roof and it has a stream in front of it or whatever, or it's in a deep forest, or I want a house overlooking the ocean. You basically create it in your mind and it's there. It's instant creation. And I think 6D is the realm, the density where you have the ability to do that. So I'm beginning to think that this place, this place where reception is, where we go, where our consciousness goes after this body is gone, then we go to that. I think that 6D level, though we still have a body there. Okay, we still have a body, and our body looks very much like what we look like in this life. It can. I think if you wanted to change your body, you could. If you didn't want to look like that, you could look like something else. But people would still, they recognize you by your frequency, by your resonance. It's just an energy. Everybody has a unique energy imprint. So, yeah. Where in Virginia is the school that trains this stuff? The Monroe Institute is a very, very interesting place. It's in, you fly into Charlotte, Virginia. I would just look it up online. It's called TMI, or the Monroe Institute. I think it's the monroeinstitute.org. You can find it very easily on the internet. And they have you start with the gateway, but the great thing that happened with COVID was that the Monroe Institute started doing online courses. They never did before. Everything was in person. But now you don't have to fly to Virginia to take the early courses. You can do the gateway. You can do just staying at home, which is great. You have to have quiet and, no distractions, turn the phones off. You have to be able to get to a quiet, dark place, whether it's, an iBand or, and earplugs, whatever. But, you can do it at home, which is great. And they have several courses you can do. I think you could probably do the first 2 at home. After that, you probably want to go. But the vacation of being there is wonderful because you're immersed in it and you're doing it all day and you don't have any distractions at all. And so it's a wonderful, great restful vacation. Okay, so he's saying that, in autobiography of a yogi basically suggests that meditation primarily is the key to advancement, and it really is. But there are many, many modalities that you can use, and I won't even say there's a right and a wrong way to do any of it. It's all what works for you. Yogananda discussed Kriya Yoga, that form of that breathing technique, as being the airplane route to God. And I later on, after I was introduced, after illness, I was introduced to pranic healing. And then through pranic healing, so I studied that energy healing, which was very interesting, and then went on to there, because I really wanted to study, there's a secondary course they had called Arhatic Yoga, which taught further, more advanced forms of breathing and ways of meditation. And so Yogananda's was the airplane route, and when I studied Arhatic Yoga, I said, well, that's the rocket ship. So, it's individual, though. But in reality, meditation itself, if you did nothing, just meditate, you can get there. But there's nice tools to have to speed things up. We're all in a hurry, aren't we? I don't know, I am. Yeah. She said, we're wondering about UFOs, and are they from another dimension? They're from here. We have Earth, we have UFOs ourselves. They don't want to talk about it. It's called the Secret Space Program, Solar Warden. Yeah, we have them from here. They're from, there's life on almost every planet. I mean, Venus, Mars, all of them have life living on them. And there's portals. The really interesting thing when you get into this is a great rabbit hole. I think there's portals all over Earth that, basically you go through a portal and you're on another planet. You see a lot of these sci-fi movies like Stargate and Star Wars, all these, they're actually disclosure. So if you look at, whenever you're watching movies from now on, keep your eyes open and say, oh, what are they trying to tell me? And he goes, you know what, it's probably true. I mean, all this time we've thought it was fiction. It's really not. And so, yes, there are UFOs from everywhere. And like I said, I went to a UFO conference in this summer up in Mount Shasta, and we did a group of us did what they call a night watch. So we went up on the mountain, and this guy had all these night vision goggles. So we shared the night vision goggles. The group, within about an hour, we saw no less than 40 UFOs with the night vision goggles up there in the dark mountain. It was amazing. They're everywhere. Literally thousands and thousands are around the earth. And if you're dialed into certain channels on social media, there's pictures, being people are catching them with their cell phones, photographs all the time. So they're here. But they're not here to hurt us. If they were here, they could have wiped us out, a long time ago. That's not the point. They're here. Most of these guys, a lot of them are our family, because we're from these other planets. And that's another thing that's on that list that I posted. Julia Balaz has a segment on her website, free. You can go on there, and it's Galactic Astrology. And you can put your chart, if you put your astrological information in you can do a birth chart, you can find out what other planets you may have lived on. And it's pretty interesting, because we're all from other places. So people say, what planet are you from? I'm going, well, I can't tell you what one planet, probably lots. I think many.
What is the biggest revelation you have had understanding your past lives?
The biggest revelation? Well, I think it was the connections, the people, the repeating souls that keep coming back, understanding our soul family. And then, of course, part of that's an ongoing thing, too, because I've used that information that I've been able to call from my past lives in helping myself. And this also answers your question, too, is like what I'm personally going through, and we all actually are, and we all need to be focusing on this dark night of the soul, because this is when we clean our ego out, and we really have to get rid of this ego. Then we can move through into 5D. And the past life information really helps you find those blockages, the stoppages. Why do I feel this way about something? So there's a lot of, it's almost like self-psychoanalysis in a way. It kind of helps you do that. So I would say that's the biggest revelation, and that's mostly what I'm spending my days doing, is a lot of work up here. Can you explain the differences between remote viewing and astral travel? I think it's a very subtle difference, very subtle. I think in astral travel, a portion of a part of my consciousness, or a body, we'll call it, say the etheric body, does actually go, because, like I said, I can give my mom a hug in 6D. I, too, have some aspect of a physical body. But I think in remote viewing, it's just pure consciousness, but it's actually quite similar. I don't know how they do. I've actually wanted to take one of those courses for, I did meet the actually at Monroe Institute, I met the granddaddy of it, was Joe McMonigal. I met him up there at the Institute. He was one of the first, he was always referred to as Remote Viewer 1. He was like the first guinea pig. I mean, and they trained the CIA and all these guys, that's where they get that Monroe started all that stuff. And they use the remote viewing for spying and, doing all that stuff. But remote viewing is pretty interesting. But I think it's mostly a consciousness thing. But it's all similar. It's one of our human abilities. Yeah. She said, why did they genetically dumb down our DNA? In other words, turn off the strands. No, actually, I think Enlil might have done. I'm not 100%. Don't quote me, but I think Enlil might have done this. The brother of Enki. Enki was the genetic engineer who basically originally created us out of whatever these different types of DNA. And actually, he's coming back with he has the blueprint for our original. Yeah, he's got the original DNA blueprint that I think they're going to use in the holographic medbeds that are coming soon, hopefully. But I think that it's we'll just call it the bad guys, sort of turned off these other 10 strands of DNA. They wanted to keep us as slaves. They want us working and supporting their system, and frankly, that's what we've been doing all these years. Taxes that don't go for what we think we're paying taxes for, and, it's just our whole lives are spent trying to keep up with the system and just keep our head above water. And, we've been part of a slave system, but we're breaking loose of our chains. So I think it was literally physically turned off. But I don't think it didn't happen overnight. It was over time. It might have been after the flood too, because the flood, the Noah's Ark and all that stuff. That's a real thing. All these stories we might have thought were myth. They're not. Oh, any other questions? Yes. Yeah, she's saying what's happening to the natural world of plants and animals and the earth, of course. The earth is actually a consciousness, an entity. But yes, they're all evolving. They're all moving. We're on this planet. We're on this rock together. Okay, we're all moving into 5D. And I think what's going to happen is that with the animals and stuff, I think there's going to be less predatory nature. I think there's going to be more. You see these wonderful videos on YouTube or whatever with the wolf-like dog walking down the street with a duck kind of thing. We've seen these videos, but I think we're going to see more of that nature, man and nature are going to cohabit in an easy. It's all going to get better. It's all going to get easy. It's going to be what we've dreamed about. And see, I think we've all dreamed about the way we want our world to look because we know the way it should look, but the way we've been existing in 3D has been it's an experience. And I think it was really all about just taking this experience as a learning and taking it back when we go back to our other levels. Is that about it? Anybody else?